So this is the new Volvo C40 all-electric car. It's essentially a sportier, sexier version of the XC40 Electric, and it's also Volvo's very first dedicated EV-only model. Here in Malaysia, it's also locally assembled and easily one of the fastest, hardest accelerating EV you can buy today. So what is there to like and not like about this new EV? Let's find out in this review video. As usual, let's start with pricing. The C40 is available in Malaysia in a single variant, the top spec Ultimate version. That is priced at just under 290,000 ringgit, just 10,000 ringgit more than the XC40 Electric it's based on. Here in Malaysia, that puts it very deep into the ultra-competitive EV market. From just a few thousand ringgit more or less compared to this car, you can also buy the Mercedes-Benz EQA, the BMW iX3, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, Kia EV6, and soon the Volkswagen ID4. Not too long ago, you can hardly find any EV on sale here in Malaysia at any price range. Here, you are spoiled for choice now. That to me is excellent. Having options is always a good thing. I said in the beginning that this is Volvo's first EV-only model, but that does not mean that it was designed from the beginning, from the ground up as an EV. As you can clearly tell, this is very closely related to the XC40 crossover. It's on the same CMA platform as well. The only difference is, while the XC40 is available in a wide variety of petrol, diesel, hybrid and all-electric versions, this C40 is only made as an EV. So yes, while this is an EV-only model, it is still built on a standard conventional platform, not a dedicated EV one. So as a whole, this is closer to the EQA and iX3 rather than the more unique, built from the ground up EVs like the iX and the Ioniq 5. But that does not mean that Volvo is in any way behind in the EV game. If anything, it is by far the most ambitious car company in Malaysia when it comes to EVs. By 2025, Volvo Car Malaysia expects that 75% or 3 out of 4 new Volvos sold in Malaysia will be full electric vehicles. By 2030, it fully expects to be an EV-only car brand. Pretty much all other car brands are nowhere near as optimistic when it comes to EVs here in Malaysia, where fuel is still relatively cheap. There's not much of a push towards EV adoption compared to other markets. BMW and Mercedes-Benz Malaysia will say they plan to sell 20-30% EVs in the near future, but ICE cars, conventional vehicles, will still be the meat and potatoes of their ranges for some time to come. For Volvo Car Malaysia to say straight up, we believe in our EVs so much to set such lofty targets, it is super impressive. But enough of the big picture stuff, let's talk about the car itself. The C40 from the front looks identical, looks exactly the same as the XC40 facelift. When this first came out a couple of years ago, I thought the slimmer, sportier lights are going to be preserved for the C40, but that is not the case. The XC40 facelift looks exactly the same as this. So as a whole, the C40 just doesn't look as unique as an EV should be. Now, of course, the front grille is almost completely blanked out to give it a bit more of that EV flavor, but that will be the same as the XC40 Electric as well. At the very least though, this grille now looks slightly better than the one before. The old XC40 Electric grille still had the traditional grille outline around it, looks a little bit like an afterthought. This to me looks far more seamless, more cohesive with the rest of the design. As for the headlights, they do have the iconic Thor's Hammer LED DRLs, but the lights themselves are reflector LED units, look a bit disappointing. Here we don't get the much fancier looking matrix LED projectors available in other markets, so the car that you can buy today, right now, doesn't even look as good as the cars they are marketing in their billboards and brochures. That's a bit disappointing, I think. What is far more eye-catching, however, is the shape, the profile of the C40, where it breaks away from the standard XC40 from the B pillar onwards. This SUV coupe look, I think, does give it a much fresher look compared to its older SUV brother. Speaking of fresh, I do have to comment on the sage green color option because it looks fantastic. Up close, under direct sunlight, it glimmers. It has a bit of a glitter effect on the surface. It looks fantastic. Easily one of the more unique color options available in Malaysia so far. Here in Malaysia, we are getting the standard 19-inch alloy wheels with a set of Pirelli P0 tires that is both specific to Volvo and EVs. The larger 20-inch wheels you see in most of the C40's marketing videos and photos do definitely look better in my opinion. But given this car's harsh ride, which I'll cover later on in this video, the smaller wheels with a thicker tyre profile is definitely the right way to go for the Malaysian market. This car's wipers are also quite interesting. Instead of having traditional water jets just spraying water on the windscreen, the water comes off smaller jets on the wiper blade arms themselves. In use, you get a lot less water spray on the windscreen, benefiting vision and safety obviously, and overall you also use a lot less water than in a conventional system. Also important is the fact that this uses normal wiper blades, so you don't need special ones like in Mercedes's stupidly named Magic Vision Control that uses special wiper blades that's going to cost you 2 times, 3 times as much to replace them later on. While the front is going to be very familiar to most people, the rear end is fully unique to the C40 and I think it looks great. Volvos of recent years have had very prominent large taillights, but this is easily my favorite one yet. It is very tall, very wide, and the lighting signature is unique whether you're looking at it at night or even in daytime. With this being a coupe SUV, the rear screen has a very shallow rake angle, and like in most other EVs in the price range, you don't get a rear wiper on this car. With Malaysia getting a lot of rain all year long, this is going to be a problem in the long run, I think. What I do like, however, is the double spoiler setup on this car. At the top, we've got these 2 double bubble boxy lumps which remind me of Gundams, which I think look really cool, while the bottom has a much more subtle looking boot-lid spoiler. Overall, it makes the car look very unique, very nice. What I find very peculiar is the thick, fully black body cladding all around the car. This is supposed to be a sporty SUV coupe, and yet it still has the traditional SUV styling cues. Yeah, a bit funny to me. But overall, you still have to give Volvo props for making this car look so cool, so unique right now, although on the inside is a bit of a different story. So as you can see, the C40 shares the exact same dashboard as the Volvo XC40, which is not a new car at all. It was first unveiled to the world in 2017. Now that may not sound like too long of a time ago, but what you end up with is a brand new EV for 2023 with an interior design that is 6 years old. Having said that, that is not such a bad thing because this is still one of the younger, fresher looking interiors in Volvo's range. The rest of the models, the S60, S90, XC60, XC90, they all share the same old interior. This to me looks far fresher. And the build quality is generally very good as well. The entire top half is covered in this nice and plush soft touch plastics, and as you move further down the cabin, the plastics do get a bit harder, but you will find less really cheap, nasty hollow plastics in this car compared to a Mercedes EQA, Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6. This feels like it's built to a much higher standard. But at the same time, I do have to say the C40 has been slightly downgraded compared to the XC40 because to appeal to environmentalists, Volvo has made this cabin leather free. Now that does not mean that you get extra leather for free. What it means is that this is free of any leather. So the seats, for instance, instead of getting normal leather upholstery, you get this mix of suede or microfiber artificial leather mix, and the steering wheel is covered in vegan leather, artificial leather, no real stuff here at all. But I'm not against artificial leather at all. What I don't like is this part down here. In the XC40, both the gear knob and the key fob are covered in really nice leather. On this car, it's just plain cheap plastic. This is environmentalism gone too far, I think. What you end up with is a cabin that feels cheaper, less expensive than it really should be. On the flip side, this does have what I think is the absolute best infotainment system in the entire industry. This is the very latest version of Google Android Automotive OS, and it's fantastic. It's very easy to use, it looks good, and it's got proper onboard Google Maps to use. Now, there are a lot of benefits of using the onboard Google Map on this car compared to something that's on your mobile phone, because it's connected to the car itself. Whenever you input any destination, it will calculate how much battery you will have left by the time you reach. As you can see over here, I've put in an address that is about 36 kilometers away, and it's telling me by the time I reach, I will have 65% of battery left. If you are to use navigation apps on your phone, you will not get this crucial information. And because this has native access to the Google Play Store, you can install your favorite apps such as Spotify and so on. Although as of right now, Waze is not yet available. For iPhone users, there is still Apple CarPlay available, although this still requires a cable connection. A bit old school for a brand new car, I think. Other than that, you also have a fully digital instrument cluster in front of the driver, and this looks very good, although not very customizable. Pretty much you only have the option between a fully blank center or a map display. Other than that, you can't customize anything. Moving on, it's also got the usual Volvo thing. The entire aircon controls are embedded within the screen itself, so you have to click on the bottom part over here before you can adjust your temperature, fan, and so on. I think that's a little bit too difficult to use while moving. But thankfully, you still have physical controls for your volume and your next track buttons. That is still nice to have. Back to the screen, this does have a really good set of a 360-degree camera, but being a Volvo, you can only choose between having a top-down view or a reverse camera, not both at the same time. But onto equipment, the Malaysian C40 is fitted as standard with the fantastic Harman Kardon audio system. For the most part, this sounds really good, although I think the bass is a bit too loud even at the lower setting. But to most people, this will be a much better sounding speaker setup compared to most of its rivals. Also unique to the C40 Electric are these topography trim pieces. These are backlit, so they look really nice at night. One thing I like to mention is that, like a Tesla, all you have to do to drive the car is get in with the key in your pocket, press the brakes, select gear that you like, and off you go. There is no traditional start button in this car. But having said that, because this shares the exact same dashboard as the XC40, where the start button would have been in that car is still over here. It's just blanked off. Doesn't look very good now, does it? In the back, the C40 just isn't very good. The XC40 that this is based on wasn't that good to begin with, and this is even worse still. Legroom isn't too bad, but headroom, I am only 167 centimeters tall, but my hair is almost touching the ceiling right here. Not good at all. And then there's the seats themselves. The base is just too short. The backrest is almost ridiculously too upright. It's just not a very comfortable rear seat at all. And then there's this. With most EVs, the floor is usually flat, but on the C40 there's this big center hump over here. So if you were to see the third person in the back, everyone's going to be struggling for foot space. As for features, you do get rear aircon vents, which are nice to use, and a set of USB-C chargers down there. You've also got handy hooks on the side for your ikat tepi drinks and whatnot. What is more controversial is this, a fully open panoramic sunroof. Now, sunroof is not an unusual thing in cars, but over here, there is no cover, there is no sunshade at all. It's just permanently open like this. This being Malaysia, we get harsh sunlight all year long, so having this for a car in Malaysia is a bit of a weird thing. Now, the glass itself is already quite dark, so you don't get too much of a glare coming in from the sun. But in terms of heat, it's not very good. You can just feel the amount of heat coming through the glass compared to the side. Of course, you can apply another set of tint on the top glass over here, but by then it's just going to be too dark. You won't be able to see anything through it. Just beats the whole point, doesn't it? As for the boot, the C40 is very decent at around 413 liters of space, although that is quite a dramatic drop of around 50 liters down from the XC40 SUV. But what's more significant than the litre drop is the fact that you can only load up the car up until this high. Anything more and you can't close the boot. So in terms of practicality, the XC40 SUV is far better in that sense. However, this being a Volvo, you do get a lot of hooks around the boot, and my favorite part is this. You can just fold up the boot floor and you get extra hooks for your shopping bags. That is very clever. Under the floor, you also get a very decent load space for your charging cables and whatnot. And the C40 also has a rather usable secondary load bay under the front bonnet, or the frunk as some people would call it, at around 30 litres of space. Now that may not sound like a lot, but it's enough to fit an extra backpack for sure. And at least it's far better than the step floors on the Ioniq 5 and the EV6. So finally, on the move with the Volvo C40. So far, you may think I've been a little bit harsh on this car, but this is where it's going to claw its way back. As I've said, there is only a single variant available for Malaysia, which is the Recharge Twin. Now that means it has two separate electric motors, one powering the front wheels, one more powering the rear wheels for an all-wheel drive setup. So the total output is nothing short of astonishing: 408 PS and 660 Newton meters of torque. Compared to anything else within the same price range, this comes out tops. This has more than twice the amount of power the EQA offers, and even compared to the most powerful version of the Ioniq 5, this has about 100 PS more. 0 to 100 is done in just 4.7 seconds, which is scarcely believable. That is deep into sports car territory. Even the fastest EV in the class so far, the Kia EV6, that does 0 to 100 in 5.2 seconds itself. Stupidly fast, way quicker than any car should be. This does it in 4.7, 0.5 seconds quicker than that. Now, you may not think that's not too big of a difference, which may be true if you're talking about, say, moving from 8.5 seconds to 8 seconds flat. But when you're talking about sub 5 seconds, that is a massive difference. This feels much quicker than both Ioniq 5 and the EV6. Now you see, the way this car shoots forward is just insane. See that car in the back there? Press your throttle and it's gone, completely gone. We are literally talking about 80 to 100 kilometers per hour in about a second, which is absolutely insane. Bar the top-end Ferraris and Lamborghinis, you are looking at one of the fastest cars on the road today. And it looks like this on the outside. Talk about being a sleeper. With EVs, you know that the torque delivery is near instantaneous, but with the C40, it takes it up to a whole new level. With most EVs, you do get a wide range of driving modes, like say Eco, Normal, Sport, and so on. With the Volvo, you get none of it. You get one single default driving mode, and it pretty much covers the entire range. You drive it slow enough with, say, the first 20% of the pedal travel, and it works like any other Eco mode. Very smooth, a little bit lethargic for most people, but it's okay, it's not too bad. And then you press a little bit more, and it's very responsive as well. You press it in full, and it just shoots forward like an absolute rocket. There is no gap at all between the time you press the throttle and the car shooting forward. Is just insane. With most other EVs, the absolute power delivery the car can offer is dictated by the driving modes. Like say you're driving an Ioniq 5, in normal mode, you're not going to get as quick as acceleration as if you were in sport mode. With this car, with no driving modes whatsoever, you get the best of both worlds. You get full eco efficiency plus sport mode explosiveness all in a single drive mode. But the lack of options, the lack of granularity available on this car also extends more than just the driving modes as well. As for the steering wheel, there is just two different options: super light or firm. I just cannot drive this car in the light mode. It's just too light, too vague at the front. Firm isn't firm enough, I think, for this car. It's the same with brake regen as well. You get an option of single pedal driving, which is full brake regen, or the default mode, which is nearly zero brake regen. It's weird. Like say Ioniq 5 gives you 5 different levels of brake regen, and on top of that is the single pedal mode. With this one, there is just completely on or completely off. Now let's talk about range. This car has a 78 kilowatt hour battery pack, out of which only 75 kilowatt hours is actually usable. Now, having driven this car for over a few hundred kilometers, I've averaged around 17.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is about average, I think, for a car of this size. I got similar consumption levels in both the Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6 as well. Against its total usable capacity, that means an overall range of around 430 kilometers here on Malaysian roads, which is close enough to the 450 kilometer range on the WLTP cycle that Volvo claims. There's just one weird thing about the range though. This car does not show you the estimated range on the instrument panel. It just shows you the percentage of the battery left. So driving right now, I know this car has 68% of the battery left, but I would have no idea how much I can actually travel. For that, I gotta press this button over here, range assistance, and yeah, now I know I can go up to 300 kilometers more. Why can't they just show you the kilometers down there like in any other EVs out there? That's just such a weird thing, Volvo. As for charging, this has the usual 11 kilowatt onboard AC charger, so using that from 0 to 100% will take you around 8 hours or so. For DC charging, this has a maximum rate of 150 kilowatts. So if you use one of those 180 kilowatt DCFCs, you can go from say 10% to 80% in just over 30 minutes. More than quick enough, although of course is nowhere near as impressive as those Kia EV6 and Ioniq 5 with their 800 volt architecture and nearly 350 kilowatt DC fast charging capability. So in terms of being future proof, this is a little bit lacking compared to the 800 volt Kias and Hyundais. Now let's talk about ride and handling, where Volvo struggles a little bit with this C40. This is a heavy car compared to the normal conventional ICE-powered XC40. This is about 500 kilograms heavier. This is over 2 tons, in fact. To support all that weight, Volvo has had to put on very stiff set of suspension, and this being the lower end of the Volvo range, they couldn't just put the higher tech or more expensive adaptive suspension system. So what we are stuck with is a conventional steel passive springs on an EV that is as heavy as this. The result is a very busy and firm ride. It's not very comfortable at all. Now, compared to its peers, I'd say the EQA is far more comfortable, the Ioniq 5 is a lot more comfortable, and the EV6, again, as comfortable as the Ioniq 5 but with a lot more body control. Purely in terms of ride and handling, I would rate this absolute last compared to its competitors. The one thing that this car is just screaming for is a set of adjustable suspension. Had that been installed, this would be a much better car overall. But that's not to say that this has bad handling. If anything, it's actually quite a lot of fun driving this car, but that has more to do with the explosive power delivery rather than the actual body control on offer here. Stringing this along through corners, you get a lot of fun just shooting out of corners at a crazy alarming rate. Although going into the corner, yeah, you do get a lot of understeer. Yeah, it's not very in control, I would say. But still, shooting out of corners quicker than anything short of a full-blown WRC rally car is a lot of fun. As for refinement, this car is excellent. I'm doing about 90 kilometers per hour now, and you can hear it. There is no wind noise coming into the cabin at all, and even road noise is very minimal. That's probably thanks to the EV specific tires that this car comes on. This is something that a lot of EV makers get wrong. Without an engine noise to drown out a lot of the excess noise coming into the cabin, you tend to focus a lot more on, say, the wind noise, road noise, and so on. Here, everything is properly muted. Even at 110 kilometers per hour, there's barely any wind noise at all, so this is a fantastic long distance cruiser. It's just that, yeah, with this panoramic sunroof, you do get a lot of heat coming in. You can see I'm just sweating over here because I have to put the aircon at a low setting so you don't hear it through the microphone. Yeah, it's just not a very pleasant experience overall. I wish I can close up this sunroof. One last thing before we stop is the active driving assist systems on this car. This being a Volvo, you know it comes fully packed with everything you'd want or need. So you got the whole thing: AEB, autonomous emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, ACC, level 2 semi-autonomous driving, lane centering system. Everything is available on this car as standard. Now, turning it on is very easy. Just press a single button over here and the car completely takes over. It will keep you within the center of the lane. It will keep you away from the cars in front. It will brake as the car in front brakes, and it's all a very seamless experience. Easily put, this is one of the smoothest systems I've experienced so far, right up there with the very best. So that's my full review of the new Volvo C40 Electric. Overall, this is a good piece of kit, but it does come with quite a few deep character flaws as well. The rear seats are just not comfortable enough, and in an effort to make the car more sustainable and more environmentally friendly, you've ended up with an interior that just doesn't feel as expensive or as luxurious as it should be. And then there's the ride as well. To me, it's just far too busy, too firm for this class. The C40 just screams for an adjustable suspension system. That to me would have made the car just significantly much better overall. But at the same time, it is a great looking car, as you can see, with a fantastic price point as well. The infotainment system is easily the best in the business right now, and the level of performance on offer here is mind-bogglingly good that any BMW M or Mercedes-Benz AMG models costing twice, 3 times as much would struggle to match. If you're looking for an EV that would blow your socks off, this is the one to get. So what do you think of this C40 review? Let me know in the comments below. For now, thank you for watching and stay safe, everyone.